Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Biz Coach Show. And we're hanging out with Eric T. Whitmoyer, founder and CEO of My Biz Coaches. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing exceptional, David. How about yourself?
Exceptional. Okay. I'm not quite that good, but I'm doing all right. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Excellent.
Well, hey, if you didn't catch the last episode that we did, definitely take a minute and go check it out. And it was all about an announcement that Eric made around kind of a new partnership with My Biz Coaches and SMBC Solutions, which is all about business finance, business credit, and also kind of some education around those topics. And so definitely take a moment to go check that out because we're going to kind of build on that today. And we're going to uncover kind of some tips and advice for coaches. And if you're watching this and you're a business coach, or maybe you're a professional that serves small businesses and you have a client that is interested or needs business financing, but that's not an area of expertise that you have, Eric wants to kind of empower you with some information, some kind of need to know stuff so that you can properly guide that client and help them on the right path toward getting the finance that they need to sustain or grow their business. And so, Eric, with that in mind, maybe what's the first thing that a coach would need to know if they are advising somebody on financing or business credit and it's not kind of an area of expertise of theirs?
Yeah. So here's what I would start with, David. And I think this is just an overarching statement that I'm going to make. It's a reminder for everybody because I've said this on the channel before. But what you need to remember and convey this to your clients, because this is important for your clients to embrace, right? Because this, first of all, financial topics are usually very sensitive and emotional topics. Right?
Yes.
So,
yeah, finance or business or otherwise, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the challenges that we run into in covering these topics with our clients is the fact that there's often because it's sensitive and because it's emotional, there's a tendency for the client not to want to share all the details. Well, here's the problem with that. If you're a good coach and you understand this, if you haven't already learned the hard way, you will. When somebody doesn't give you all the information, but then they ask for advice,
yeah,
you can only give the quality of information will only be representative of the information the feedback that I give you is only good to the level or quality of the information that I'm given to provide that insight, right?
Right.
So if somebody leaves certain details out and I give them a course or a direction or guidance in something or on something on a particular topic, and they didn't give me all the details, like, oh, by the way, I don't think I can cover payroll this week. Well, there's no freaking way that I'm going to be able to give you good advice on what to do next steps. If you're in crisis mode, you're not going to think straight. You're not going to make good decisions. And most importantly, you don't have the time or the bandwidth or the brain space to work on a project that's going to generate some new sales. You know, if we have a way to pump out a whole bunch of new sales and generate an extra 50 grand, yeah, maybe. But that and if you can't cover payroll, maybe that's exactly what we need to be talking about. So if as a coach, if you haven't experienced that yet, you will. I did on my very second client. But the point is that having that conversation can be very challenging. So the first thing to do is put them at ease and help them understand, hey, every business owner deals with this at one point or another in their career, right? If they're in a super successful business, I guarantee you that they went through some trials and tribulations on the way to get to where they're at. And it may have been setbacks. It may have been economical challenges. It may have been mistakes. You know, my payroll company pulled the money before they were supposed to, and it overdrafted my operating account. I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen the gamut of it. Right. So the point is, let your client know it's okay. This stuff happens. And even if it's a mistake that the owner made, you can't beat them up and make them feel bad for it, because the truth of the matter is they're not going to make good decisions until they get over the emotional component of what they're dealing with. Yeah. So, so then I remind them, 76% of businesses don't make it 10 years. 49 don't make it 5 years. 25 don't make it outside of a year. If they're outside of any one of those windows, hey, you're still in the business. You're still in the game. You can keep playing. At least you've gotten this far. You gotten this far, right? But in addition to that, I'd also remind them, 82% of all businesses that are not in business acknowledge that access to capital was the number one reason that they failed, as the number one reason for them to shut down the business.
It's an alarming stat.
It's seriously alarming. And often, in many cases, we're talking about, and again, I'll share this, the average small business owner is no more than 60 days from insolvency. If they went 60 days without cash, without revenue coming in, they would likely have to shut the doors. And that is like 90% of businesses.
That's crazy. Well, and I think you make such a good point about, empathizing with the business owner, not making them feel judged. And I think it's important for them to feel like, hey, I'm in the arena with you. I'm not in the stands mocking you, or, I've been there. I've been through this battle. And my job is to try to make it easier. And I can only do that if you are honest with me. So that's a great first bit of advice. What would be kind of the next thing that you would advise coaches on?
Yeah, it's a great point. So, I mean, as you transition from one, don't beat them up, and those, I share those statistics to really kind of drive that point home. All businesses deal with this at one point or another, right? Even the ones that were successful dealt with that. So you're not the exception. This isn't the end of the world. It may feel really challenging, and you may have to make some difficult decisions, but it's not the end of the world, and we're going to get past that, right? So that's the first thing, and that's really important. The second thing is, they come to you and they say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I've got these challenges with cash flow or whatever the case may be. The next part of the conversation is, what resources do we have access to? Right. And in order of how it relates directly to the individual owner in regards to their the impact that will have on them personally. So what business assets do we have access to? Cash accounts, savings accounts, business credit, right? And progress through all the different business options that are available before we start talking about personal options, right? And then when you get into personal options, then start thinking, okay, how can we alleviate the biggest impact on you as an individual? So if you have $50,000 in a savings account, it's not ideal, but that's better than putting on your personal credit, right? And leveraging up your credit and impacting that in a negative way. So the whole point is to look at this because again, you're in triage at this point if you're struggling financially. So we kind of identify what are the different options that are available to us, both from a business perspective and then ultimately from a personal perspective, and identify how do we, what resources do we have, what options do we have, and how can we make some strategic, intelligent decisions based on what we need to do to resolve the problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. So a little bit of triage, starting with the business stuff first, and then hopefully not get into personal, but if so, how do we lessen the impact?
Right. And when you get into the business or personal, when you get into the personal pieces, make sure that you're, sensitive to that conversation, because now it's not just the business owner, it's likely the spouse and the family of the business owner, and what impact that may have within the family as well. And considerably, how that conversation goes down before they go and make a knee-jerk decision, which I've seen too many people do. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Cool. Well, what would be the next thing they should look at after they go through the triage assessment, we'll call it?
Well, then it's, what did we do? At this point, now we start assessing, okay, we got to figure out what the solution is, right? Where do we go? How do we get access to? If we get to the point where we don't have anything available to us, what are the options that we have that we can go and request, right? So, and there's a series of different loan opportunities that you could go apply for. Here's the problem with a triage situation that you're trying to absolve, a cash flow shortage or something, and you're not quite sure how to address it with the client. So you're progressing through this conversation. Okay, now we've identified that we don't have any assets or anything that we can draw from. So now we have to go and figure out if we can borrow. Well, here's the problem with borrowing at this point. It's going to cost you a lot more, and it's not going to be on the most favorable terms. And worse yet, all of that, it's likely not going to be as much as you need to give you comfort. It's going to be barely enough to cover whatever immediate circumstance you have to deal with. So as a coach who may or may not have experienced this before, working with an owner who probably has not experienced this before, which is why, you're working with them on this. You need to keep them, give them clear indication of what to expect from this, because the truth of the matter is they're going to go in and the first person they're going to talk to is, oh yeah, no problem, I can get you a loan. I'll get you $100,000, right? Well, they're talking about, they're going to, and what you're likely, depending on the business and where you're at from a credit perspective, the likelihood that you're going to have access to a 5-year term loan at 8%, good luck, not happening. Not unless you're in a phenomenal credit situation, right? Which chances are, if you were in a great credit situation, you already have access to credit to leverage in this scenario, right?
Yeah.
You probably have a business line of credit of $50,000 or $100,000 you can access.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then likely you have an established business credit. And if you don't have established business credit, you're going to have to get some, and it's not going to be fun the first time around. It's going to be less than ideal if you haven't already established it. So now you're looking at products and solutions that aren't tied to assets, because you likely don't have enough assets to do it. If you do have some assets, they'll be encumbered, meaning the loan will be set against those. And so it's just, you have to identify what are the options here and what can I actually utilize that's going to allow me to, absolve my short-term problem and get the money that I need to offset that challenge. So all of these are and again, this is a little bit of a triage situation. If the client doesn't have access to credit and cash, they're in a tough situation, they have a financial shortfall, this is what you got to do. And the worst part is that as you get to the loans, here's the problem I said earlier, the loan person's going to be, oh, no problem, we can get that for you. And then what they come back to you is, oh yeah, well, you don't have assets, you don't have this, your personal credit score is not the greatest, you don't have a business credit score, so here's what you qualify for. And it's going to be a loan against your credit card processing, or it's going to be what we call an MCA loan. And these loans are very high interest, often it's almost like a payday loan for a business, right? And these are not good loans unless you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And for the average person, most people that go that path, it is literally just a matter of time before they suffer a bigger setback. It literally, it puts a Band-Aid on the situation. It doesn't really solve the situation. And you have to have a very strategic outlook on how to do that.
Well, and that goes to what we've talked about, I don't know on how many different episodes over the months, but just you need to sort out the financing while the business is doing well, right? And no matter what you think, if you're riding the roller coaster up or down, like now is the time, because you don't know when you're going to need it in the future. So it's better to do it now when you get the most favorable terms instead of waiting until you're in triage mode, right? So
absolutely,
super important. And Eric, I did notice there's one thing you didn't mention, which is as a coach, you might want to have them prepay a couple months of your services so that you make sure that you're covered, so you can coach them through it, right? That might be important too. So.
That's actually a really good point that I did not think of, David.
Cool. Well, any other advice that you have for coaches that are helping clients navigate this?
Yeah, no. So I think that looking at that scenario, which is again not the ideal situation that anybody wants to be in, but I think that the important part then is to, like anything else, David, that we've dealt with in the past when we've been in business together, is okay, we've progressed through this, we've recognized there was a challenge, we worked through the situation, now we're on the other side of that. What did we learn from this experience? Right? That's the most important thing that we need to take away from this experience, regardless of whether it's a good situation or a bad outcome, right? The truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, what did I learn from this and what am I going to do differently moving forward? And if I'm being honest, even with the experience that I've had with clients, even with the guidance, often, and I don't know what often really looks like because I'd have to quantify that, but I will tell you, I'm going to say a third of the time, maybe more, they don't do anything differently after the experience.
Wow.
And that's with guidance.
Yeah.
Right. That's not only with the experience being bad, but in addition to that, and somebody telling you, oh, by the way, David, you should probably prepare for this next time. Right. They still don't take action on it. And there's a number of different reasons for that. I mean, literally was watching a movie the other day. It's a much older movie, so you probably wouldn't know what it was, David. But there's a scene in the movie where the guy's like adamant, we've been debt free for so many years. But they're literally on the verge of going bankrupt. The whole business isn't going bankrupt, but a division of the company is basically hemorrhaging money, and the rest of the company's having to offset that division.
Right.
And the whole point is the guy's an investor, and he's like, you need to unload this division and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right. And the guy's like, no, because it's like his baby, right? That was what they grew the business on, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that he's so focused on this because we've always been debt free. Well, that's the challenge in a scenario like that, is you were always debt free. You never carried debt. You probably didn't establish credit. And now if you need it, when you need it, you can't get it.
Well, that's
company.
Yeah, and that's one of the other problems is they wait till they're in dire straits to get a coach as well. And so we talk about the importance of getting, your financing before you need it. Get a coach before your business is 3 months from disaster as well. I mean, right? I mean, that's the other thing is, how can we help optimize things? How can we create, additional revenue? How can we close more sales, right? Whatever it is, let's do that now before you're in this situation. And, they're hoping you can, do a Hail Mary pass and get them out of it. It's like, we should have called me 12 months ago and then we could have avoided this. But now I'm going to help you save as much as you can and sell off your assets. That's the coaching I'm going to provide.
And unfortunately, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what that conversation would have to look like, and depending on the scenario, right? Yeah. And like I said before, if you think about the statement that I made about, every business is 60 days from insolvency, every business, majority of businesses, right. And that is like a 90% statistic. That's 60 days from insolvency. Here's the other part of that. What if you had 60 days where your sales were up 25%? So if you drop 20%, but sales are up 25%, do you have a problem at the end? Not necessarily, except you did go through a period of time where you went through a crap ton of angst and frustration.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe you sold your way out of it and got out of it. But here's the question. If you're in the hole and you're struggling with whether or not we can cover payroll next week, right, or rent or whatever major important expense that you have for your business, are you making the best intelligent decisions about your business?
No.
Not likely.
You're probably not sleeping either, which means you're making even worse decisions.
Thank you. Yeah. And so to make matters worse, you're not making good decisions. You're not thinking clearly. You may not even think of, hey, let's run an ad promotion and let's market to our existing client base to drive sales higher than we normally would see, because for whatever reason they've dropped off. Well, if we do run a 20% promotion, a discount but it increases sales and gets us to break even, we're not in the hole. We're not losing money. We can at least kind of skate by. And then you get to 2 months down the road and you get past, I don't know, the elections or something like that. And all of a sudden, look at that. Sales are back up again. I don't know. Yeah. But the point is, you never know what's impacting it. And let me rephrase that. You don't necessarily always know when it happens, what's impacting your business. You may be able to kind of look at it and figure it out over time. But again, if you're not thinking critically because you're in scarcity mode and you're struggling, you don't make good decisions. And to your point, that's when you do need a confidant to go to and say, hey, I need a suggestion. I need an idea. And what you need is somebody who understands your business, not just anybody. Right? You need somebody who understands your particular type of business. And it doesn't need to be specifically that business, but somebody in that categorical area, because they can come up with solutions. They've seen some of these experiences before. They maybe even lived through those types of scenarios, and they're going to give you better guidance and better insight. And as it relates to cash and credit and making those really tough, as I mentioned before, emotional decisions, right? These challenging decisions. I mean, I've had clients that call me and say, yeah, everything was good. And then all of a sudden I had, 2 bad months back to back. And now I don't have any surplus of cash and I just barely covered payroll. I'm like, all right, so our immediate focus right now is how can we get you 10 new clients the next 2 weeks, less 4 weeks, whatever that is.
Right.
And take deposits on sales or whatever. What could we do? How many existing clients could we call to bring back in? How many new clients have you had that have been talking to you, but we didn't close them, that we could call back up and say, hey, look, I know it's kind of I'll give you 20% off if you sign up by Friday.
Yeah.
How much does that help your business, right? But again, we're not thinking that way because we're stressed out. So as a coach, these are the kind of suggestions that you need to be making to your client as they're walking through this conversation and kind of like, okay, well, one, with triage modes, let's fix the credit scenario, but let's also talk about from a sales perspective, how can we increase sales? And then there's also what costs can we do away with? What things could we unload right now and save some money on? So those are obvious. And it seems, as I'm saying it, that's so obvious.
Not when you're in the moment, though, to your point.
Yeah. And when I led the conversation, where did I go? I talked about, what credit can we, what money can we get? That's what you're thinking about, because that's where you go. How do I offset this shortfall? You're not thinking about how could I sell my way out of this over the next 2 weeks? How much time do I have, right? If I know I've got 30 days and I'm going to hit a wall in 30 days, well, I got 30 days to increase sales. Right. So what could I do to increase sales over the next 30 days? And I might have to bust my butt during that next 30 days, but that's better than the, triage of pulling, my last $50,000 out of my savings account, or worse yet, putting on a bunch of credit cards, personal credit cards.
Yeah.
That's now jacking up my personal credit score and put me in a bad space at home.
Right. Yeah. No, a lot to think about. Any other kind of parting bits of advice you'd have?
Yeah, I would say, for anybody who's in that, coaching space that's currently working with clients, if you haven't dealt with this because you don't focus in this particular area, if you don't focus on the area, don't try and take it on unless you have the experience with it. If you do have the experience with it, or you're comfortable in that area, but you think you could use some added benefit, we're always looking for good new coaches. We'd love to partner with people who would consider becoming a MyBiz coach. And if you understand our concept at MyBiz Coaches, we work in a collaboration. We work together. We share best practices. We share ideas. And so this type of information and insight can be made available. So if you had a new client who reached out to you, or an existing client that's struggling through this scenario, I could get on the phone with you. We could talk through some of these different scenarios. If you're a business owner and you're hearing this, give me a call. We can talk through that. We can create a solution for you. Our new partnership with my SMBC Solutions, that's Small Business Credit Solutions, where we have people trained to teach you how to establish your business credit, how to get access to capital, how to use and leverage those resources so that you don't find yourself in these situations. Or if you do, at least you have solutions that you can, within your business, to utilize to kind of buy some time and get through those tough scenarios that have a tendency to happen.
Absolutely. Well, as always, Eric, great advice. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes with amazing advice just like this. And make sure you head over to mybizcoaches.co if you want to learn more about becoming a coach. Also, check out SMBC Solutions to learn more about kind of that new partnership. Or as Eric mentioned, if you're a business owner and you want to schedule a meeting with Eric to talk about these different options, get some information, definitely scan that QR code and set up a time to meet. Eric, as always, great hanging out with you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Awesome. Appreciate it, David. Thank you.